Now, you're going to have some questions, and what I'm going to do is actually just going to talk you through essentially what's going on here. I think, well, this is the first time I've seen these boards, so for me it's quite new as well. These essentially outline an executive search process from start to finish, where you've got a client at the end who's actually quite disappointed at the moment. Things are not going well in his business. The business so happens to be football. Very topical at the moment. Very topical. And in this process, he decides that they need, through his HR and the CFO in this organisation, they need to get in a new manager. So a new MD for the business, and that's what they look to recruit. They brought in Penna as part of the recruitment process to help them support that drive to get that new MD. And we've got a couple of familiar, well, certainly one familiar face here, who actually would help in terms of actually bringing in that new person into the process. They obviously conduct a search. They say 2 months later, and they've got this individual who's now Massimo Gusto, who's going to be the new MD of the business, of the FC club. So, Real Grim FC now have a new MD, and things are going great. Their performance is getting better, and 6 months later, they're winning trophies. At the end of the day, they are now looking at not just recruitment, but also culture change, and trying to change their organisation and diversity of the organisation, which I know you're going to mention. So, if I say that in what we do as a business, what we typically cover is a number of sectors. Number of sectors, mostly senior level in terms of recruitment, starting from the brief to when we meet clients. Actually, no, it's not entirely true. We actually pitch and win work and then have a brief and take them through what typically is about 12 weeks in terms of process to recruit somebody. That varies depending on what they want, but essentially the outlet is first we look to attract and find and generate candidates. A number of ways of doing that. One of them is to advertise the roles, and in the public sector, clearly that's a key thing that needs to be done because there needs to be seen to be open and fair competition. In the private sector, slightly different. Come on to that. We also set up microsites, nanosites, and try to draw them through the advert to a website which is hosted for the particular role, given the job description, how to apply instructions, and some background, some exciting background about what that role is all about. We would then typically start a search process alongside this, where we're actually going into the market, identifying organisations and individuals who might be appropriate for that role. So it's a dual-edged approach. You've got advertising going on one hand, you've got search, and our exclusive search consultants actually kind of focusing on the markets and trying to find the right people with the right job titles, right experience to kind of come forward and apply for these jobs as well. They then all get assessed in what we call a long listing. We sift the candidates, we grade the candidates in terms of what they've sent in on paper, A, B or C, A the best, C the worst. And those candidates will then come forward into an interview process with a Penna consultant, quite typically alongside a technical assessor. And that could be the client, or it could be somebody we've externally brought in to support that process, somebody who's specialised and got experience, qualified external individual to give an eye on, the specialism within that particular sector role that we're trying to recruit for. We then produce reports and then meet with the client again. That client meeting is called the shortlisting meeting, where we essentially talk to them about what we've seen on that interview. Who are the candidates who are best for that role? We've actually just been through this. So you've got people who are then recommended, people who are marginal, or people who are not recommended. And they again will decide, and it's probably important to point out that the decision really is the clients at the end of the day as to who they want to go through that process. But they're leaning on us for our expertise to give them advice as to what are the best people to take through. Then we put them through what we call the final stages. The final stages usually mean some kind of assessment process. That could be psychometric assessment, it could be some kind of broader assessment centre, which would involve a number of different hoops that they've got to jump through, and at the end of it, a final panel interview, quite typically with a presentation that they've got to give, and an assessment in front of usually a board of individuals. Often in our local government team, that's members. In the private sector, obviously, that could be very different. It might well be you're just talking to the chair or the MD or the CEO of an organisation, and they will then make a decision as to who they want to appoint. That particular person is then identified. We pick up references on those individuals, and then as long as everything is ticked and all the boxes are correct, they get a job offer. And that job offer means we've got another fee. Yay. So we charge, in terms of our process, 3 stages. Once at the beginning, once at the submission of a shortlist in that process, and that's just after we've interviewed them and we've presented that list of candidates, and once at the end, where they've actually now been given an offer, and that candidate has given us written warning that they're going to take the offer. So we've got that approved, and that's when our final bill goes through. But it doesn't quite end for us there. As an entity, there are bits about this process which actually provide other opportunities for our business. Now, I'm going to open up the floor a bit, because I know a few of you have been around for a little while now, so you've got some ideas as to what other services and what other things that we could offer. So what are the things that I've missed out here? What are the other bits and pieces that we could have actually had as part of this process? But if you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just bog standard adverts going out. You can do all sorts of different things. As I was saying in the room before, we've been talking recently and actually trying out webinars for executive search. So, I think everyone knows how webinars work, but actually using it as a presentation tool to candidates to log on online, see who they're going to be working for, ask questions via a chat mechanism, and it actually works really well. It's really quite powerful, even at a senior level, to position a job in the right way. So
correct.
Things like that.
Correct. On that, I'd probably simply add that, yeah, absolutely right. We've got a team of people in the corner in the office here who, they create media schedules. Part of their job is actually to look into the market. What are the actual media that we'd want to place the adverts into? Is it online? Is it hard copy? Costs vary depending on what the client wants. Essentially, if they are looking to keep costs down, we go down the online route. The webinar thing adds very nicely to that whole process, as does the microsite. And actually linking those 3 together gives another area of our business quite a bit of activity, quite a bit of work. And actually, when we read multiple assignments and we're doing 10 in a campaign at one time, that's when that really becomes a really powerful arrangement. Those microsites sometimes can come alive with videos and such like, and it becomes a very, very different sell, very much more professional, very much more slick. And at the beginning of these processes, there are gaps. Here, performance is bad enough having to replace somebody, but if that person had left already, they would have a gap. Sometimes that person leaves before the process is finished, and there is a gap. That gap can often only be filled by a professional who knows that role, who can step in for a brief period of time, and that's exactly what interims provide. That extra cover, somebody's suited, as we used to call it, because I used to recruit interim, suitably overqualified to do the job, who would come in and hold the fort until the new person arrives. And that's essentially another area of our business, situated just over there-ish. So mentioned test centres, assessment centres, and there's a kind of a whole range of gamut of suite of things that we can do there for clients. One of the bits of interesting pieces about our work is that psychometric testing and actually checking out their personalities. So it's not just about whether they've got the technical skills to do the job. Are they going to fit?
Yeah.
Do they have the right leadership qualities to be able to lead that organisation? And actually that's part of what that team will do. They'll structure reports. Wave and Hogan, typically psychometrics, relatively straightforward, but they could also structure centres of recruitment where you're talking about perhaps them meeting stakeholders, perhaps actually going through written exercises, really testing out various aspects of what this person might well bring to the organisation in that centre, and then bringing those forwards, certainly the ones who have passed that test and are deemed to be suitable to take forward. A lot of people can drop out at that stage, and often our clients will say to us, look, that isn't the kind of quality that we're looking for, that isn't the level of experience that or the type of person that we're looking for, and they won't go further. I'm just going to mention client partners. I'm only going to mention it because I've just been speaking to one. But I think in terms of the whole of this process, what we'll often find is that there are relationships that are built here. They don't start from out of nowhere. Sometimes they do, but often they're actually based on relationships that were established already. We've got people in our business that go around establishing those relationships with clients up and down the country in various guises. And at the end of the day, often what those individuals are doing is teeing up the opportunities for us. They're finding out, they're giving us the market intel, what's going on in terms of these areas, and then coming back and saying, look, if something's happening here, you perhaps need to position yourself because there may be a recruitment opportunity coming up. The client partners will also sell things like EVP. And EVP is about how the culture of the organisation is set up. What are their values? How do they look to the market? That branding, that logo, that whole special. What is that? Is it representative of what the client wants it to be, or is it time for a refresh on that? And actually, often that's one of the things that they will sell as part of their process, actually, of meeting and developing those relationships. And I think there's some mention here about, will improve your culture, and you still need an EVP to change your culture, and so on and so forth. So that's actually, again, another team in the business that are very crucial to us. Okay, I think 6 months later, everything seems to be going quite well. No worries, they're winning trophies. Anything else that you'd add?
Coaching and support.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's something about retention. I think there's something about maintaining that relationship with the organisation. I think that if you're doing that job properly, you're recruiting often for us very senior people who apparently are already operating at a very senior level, who then may well become clients. So I've just had one situation, in fact I'm looking at another now, where I've placed somebody in an organisation and they've said, we're really happy with your service, Garfield, we'd like you to now come and replace me. You place me in a new job, I'm going, they don't want me to go, but they want me to look after the recruitment for my replacement. Can you come and actually do that for us? Now, without mentioning any names, essentially that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. We're just about to sign the PO on that one. And I've got to pitch on Monday to do exactly the same for somebody else I've just been coaching and supporting and mentoring, who thought actually didn't get the job, now got a new job, really liked your coaching, liked your process, like what you do, come and pitch for this work to replace me. So essentially that's, I'm fairly sure I probably missed out a few bits and pieces, but hopefully that gives you a good flavour of what executive search is about and how it links into the rest of the organisation. Any questions?